In this video, we're going to import some source code from this code folder into the WinA&D tool, scan that code to extract design information into a text file that can then be imported into WinA&D to populate a data dictionary and generate some design diagrams. So we're going to start by launching WinTranslator. And WinTranslator is a tool that can do a variety of things with source code, but in general, the main function is to scan code based on a specific programming language, extract that code, and from that code extract design information. And then that design information can be output to a couple of different text files that can then be imported into WinA&D to populate dictionaries and generate diagrams. So we're going to start by clicking on the Re-engineer Project button, which brings up a screen to kind of navigate through this process. So we'll create a project file by clicking a folder, and let's navigate to our Documents folder. Within our Documents folder, we have a folder called WinTranslator and then C examples, and we're going to place our project folder for this little re-engineering project, our project file for this project, into this folder, and it's next to this associated code folder that has a bunch of source code files. So we've selected our path for our project, and we're going to select the folder that has all of our source code, and it could be a single folder or a whole tree of folders. In this case, we just have a single folder with a bunch of files in it, and we're going to be using the C programming language. We're going to extract the information into a structure model. We've chosen the file extensions of the code files that are in that folder that we're going to scan through, and we're going to process all files of these file extensions. And then finally, let's go to step 5 here, and we're going to build and run. So we'll click OK, and it has scanned the code, extracted the design information, put it into a couple of text files. It gives us some instructions on what to do next, which is essentially instructions on how to take those files and bring them into WinA&D. So we'll just close that dialog, close out of WinTranslator. We're going to launch WinA&D now to complete the process. From WinA&D, we're going to click on the New Project button. Let's name our project Compiler. Let's actually store this project in that folder that we had earlier. So let's navigate under Documents, and we had a folder under WinTranslator and C examples. So that is the path to our project folder, the name of our project, and we want a dictionary and a structure models document. So what we're going to do here, we have the C programming language already selected, so we're going to click Generate Documents, and now we have a project all set up, and it's at the top of our Open Project window. We'll just select it. We have two documents. We have a dictionary document, and we have a design document for where we'll construct our structure charts. Let's import our dictionary list from a file that was produced by WinTranslator. So we'll do that by choosing Report, Import, Dictionary, Import from Disk, and we're going to navigate into our code folder where it placed a file called dictionary.rp. If we double-click that file, we now have imported a set of dictionary entries associated with this C compiler project. Now let's construct a structure chart, which is like an inverted tree of all the functions or procedures in our application and how they call each other. And we're going to do that in the design window. So within this window, we're going to select Report, Import, Child List, and we're going to start at the main function. We know that to be at the top of our inverted tree of the calling structure of these modules. If we didn't know what the main function was, we could leave that field empty and set a checkbox which would actually scan the code and then prompt us, giving us the different options of the functions it found, and then we can select the main function from that list to build our inverted tree down from that function. We're going to import these files from disk, so it prompts us for the location of our child list file. And finally, we're going to set the checkbox collapse modules with over a certain number of children underneath that. So if certain functions call a large number of child modules underneath, it'll push that down to the child diagram. And the reason we're doing that is otherwise we may end up with a diagram with thousands of boxes on it, very complex, tangled up diagrams, whereas with this approach, we're going to end up with a nice stack of diagrams that is going to organize this calling structure. So we're going to click OK. It has prompted us, and we're defaulting to the code folder into which the child list file was generated by WinTranslator. So we're just going to double click that file, and now we're going through the process of scanning through that file and producing this very large stack of structure charts. This may take a minute or two based on how large of a system that we're going to model. Now that the processing is complete, we have a stack of diagrams where on our first diagram here we start with our main function, which calls the init scanner and the get token and then the programs function, and then you can see this function calls a couple more functions and this one calls a couple more. Whenever you see a little dot in the corner, that indicates that this calls a number of child modules, and those were pushed down to a child diagram, and we can double click to navigate down. We also want to do a little cleanup work here. This is our top level diagram right here. This was the original empty diagram that was in the document to start with. Let's go ahead and delete that. And starting from this diagram, let's kind of navigate down this tree a little bit and kind of see what the structure of our application looks like. We open up this a little bigger and make our contents view just a bit bigger here so we can see the full names of these diagrams. So starting from the top level diagram, we have our main calling these different functions, and we can see the get token. If we double click on that module, it takes us to a child diagram, and we can see get token at the top calling these individual functions and so on. There are places where modules that get called from many other places can be marked as a library routine, and that's simply so that you can, there's a feature you can turn on and off the links that go from the various modules to the library routine, because often those types of functions get called by hundreds of other functions, and you may not want to always show those links on the diagram. But as we look down through the structure of this stack of diagrams that was created, we should be able to kind of go down through each diagram and get a general idea of the organization of this source code. Through these structure chart diagrams to understand the basic structure of our C compiler, we can see how, we have a set of code files, which are a stream of characters, and we have functions like get token that needs to be able to skip over blanks and get words or numbers or strings or special characters within that stream of text to try to parse through the syntax of the program. And as we're looking at our structure charts, navigating through the various diagrams, we're going to want to eventually look at the code behind each of these boxes. And that's one of the optional features in WinTranslator. As it's scanning the code, it can collect information into associated dictionary entries, so we can provide a navigational link from the diagram to the actual source code. And let's see how that works. So with each box on the structure chart, we can navigate to the associated dictionary entry. We see the name of the module, and we see some other information, including a reference section. We have a code key reference, so we know that this module, the source code for that, is stored in a file called scanner.c. And to make that navigational connection during the process of scanning that source code with WinTranslator, we've inserted some comment lines with a little code key to be able to navigate to that specific spot when the user clicks on a module and clicks a button to navigate to the code. So to make that happen, we have to tell our dictionary where our source code files are. And there's a couple of ways of doing that, but essentially we're going to go to Document Defaults, and on the namespace screen here, or tab, since all of our code is in one folder, we can click the code base and provide a path to the folder where our code resides. There are some other ways of making the connection between diagrams and where the associated source code resides by having a set of namespaces with a set of different folder paths. And that gives a way of kind of connecting the design diagrams to the ultimate source code. But for the simple example, all of our code is in this folder. So if we want to see the source code of a particular module on a diagram, we just select it and we click the code button, and it opens up the associated code file and navigates us to the spot in the folder where the function is. And it does that with a little code key, which is a little commented key that was inserted by WinTranslator during the process of scanning our source code. And so now all the boxes representing functions or procedures within our procedural source code, in this case where we have our program was written in C. It was actually a C compiler, the source code for a C compiler, but it was actually written in C as well. But this would work for any procedural language like Pascal or PHP or whatever language is written in a procedural type style. To summarize, this video was an introduction to scanning source code to extract design information and generate structured charts from procedural source code with WinTranslator and WinA&D. There's a lot of additional advanced features that you might take advantage of. For example, if you're doing a multitasking real-time system, there may be many different threads of execution, and WinTranslator and WinA&D have the ability to scan the entire body of source code and then actually sift through that source code and identify the top modules on each different thread of execution. So you can end up generating a separate structure chart for each thread of execution within that entire body of real-time source code.